Hello everybody and welcome back to the Contest Realm podcast. Now we did have a little break and that was so that I could attend some wedding fairs, and also we're still a bit sore, a bit salty about being stood up by Mike and Thel. If you're listening, we're on to you and we want that episode that you promised us. But we're back with more energy and we're going to be giving a lovely show today. This is a bit of a special one, a bit different, but also very helpful for players and also covering some current topics in the game. Now, you can find the podcast. It is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify and iTunes, but obviously give it a day because for whatever reason Apple don't put it up straight then and there. And all the infos for today for our guests are in the bios, including our very lovely, very attractive, very glamorous co-host, and that is Frontline MCOC Dan. Thank you as always for joining me.
How are we doing? Is the wedding all planned yet?
It's good, but I feel like I could have given more kind of emphasis and energy to that intro, so I'm gonna give more passion.
Oh, you're getting married. You have to bring the passion now.
I won't say that too out loud. She might think I'm giving something else. Oh dear. In any case, we're not alone. We have a guest today. Now, I'm really excited about this because it's nice to get lots of members from the community, and we'll be outreaching to more people in the coming weeks and the coming months to have people with us. And the info for his YouTube channel can be found in the bios as well. Now, I've got a build up for this. Now, this week we're going to talk about making a good roster, how to pinpoint a good rank up champion, and our guest, we're joined by a man who will give you a good look over, prescribe the correct ointment for a successful grind and champion development. The doctor is now in session. It's MCOC Doc. Welcome.
What's going on, guys? That was great.
Hey.
See, my build-ups to people are getting better, a little bit better.
I approve.
Great.
I think you're our third ever guest now. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, that is true. Number 3.
Well, we do have this kind of weird saying in the UK. I don't know if you have it in the US, first the worst, second the best, third's the one with a hairy chest. So can you confirm that?
Not really. We kind of say we have that one and the one with the treasure chest over here the middle school. So
right, okay. That's fine. So, yeah, MCC Doc, welcome to the Contest Run podcast. Now, I want to find out.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's okay. I want to find out a little bit about you. Now, we talked a little bit off stream that you've been you studying. You're just about to leave college, so that's pretty exciting. Could you let everyone know what you major in?
Yeah. So I am a senior majoring in robotics engineering.
Wow. With all the kind of the work, how you've managed to find time for MCOC? Because obviously, as we all know, it's very labor intensive in MCOC as well as study.
Yeah. It's mostly just kind of keeping it to keeping it on my normal schedule. Just making sure I log in once a day before classes, after lunch sometime around there, and then again at night. Yeah. And then YouTube kind of comes in whenever I can. Usually one video on the weekends.
See, that's the next thing I was going to come into. For me, I have to manage everything down to the minutes of an hour of what I'm doing for a given week. So I guess it's very critical with yourself to say okay, I've got time here. I've got an allotment of hours to do this, and I suppose with the demand of something quite intensive as what you're studying, it's just finding a balance. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Brilliant. So what other games apart from MCOC, whether it be Marvel or not, are you also playing at the same time or have interest in? Is this, for a lot of people, it's the first mobile game they've really taken into their life, but are there any other ones that you currently play?
Yeah, this is the first and only mobile game that I've really played. Obviously, I'll try out Marvel vs. Champions when it comes out, but for the most part, when I have a little bit of time that's not MCOC or not studying, then I'm pretty much playing mostly PC games, Minecraft, CSGO, GTA, that kind of stuff. It's kind of cool. Where I go to hang out and just chill.
I think it's good always to get a different perspective on other games out there. Just kind of I think for a lot of people, they love MCOC, but kind of going I need a little bit of a break. So when they come back to it about 4 or 5 hours later, that they're kind of do you know what, I'm really up for playing. And as well, I suppose with mobile gaming, it's having it quick to hand, which I suppose we're doing studying, say between like study periods, you're able to kind of like quickly grab in about 30 minutes to an hour. Is that the case?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, most of the time I end up doing all of my work in like the morning, afternoon, and then I'll have a couple hours at night just so I can do it all in one go, and then just kind of chill from there. And yeah,
that's cool. Right, I think it's now time to get into the real meat of what we're going to be discussing today. And this will be really helpful for those that want to get an idea of roster building, the idea of why we'd rank a certain champion to take on X amount of content, those kind of things. So I'm going to throw it over again to my glamorous co-host to kick off some fantastic questions.
Thank you, Rich. So I think every content creator in the community gets this question a lot. You get a screenshot of a roster and just that, who should I rank up? Should I rank up X champion versus Y champion? And it's often a very hard question for us to answer because it lacks a certain context to where are you at in the game and what are your goals in the game. So I think our goal is today to kind of go around and talk about how we go about making our rank up decisions and what our thought processes are so that you can apply that to your own roster and your own gameplay. Because just for example, right, you could say, if you just asked me out of the blue, Dan, should I rank up my Sentinel to rank 5, I would say, sure, Sentinel's a great champ. I love him. But if you said, oh, by the way, my only other rank 5 champ is Darkhawk, I run Suicides, and I'm already completed on variant 2 and 3, I would say maybe you go in a different direction, right? Like there's a different answer depending on how much information we have. So that's really important when you're asking these questions to content creators. So I want to throw that out before we even get started. But let's get into our different philosophies about how we rank champions up. And Doc, I'm going to kick this over to you. And I was actually watching one of your rank up videos this morning for Elsa Bloodstone, who is a little bit of an off the board pick. So let's talk about it. What goes into your decision to use those big, expensive rank up resources? And if you could give us a little hint as to why Elsa Bloodstone made the cut for you.
So whenever I kind of look at who I'm going to rank up, the first thing I'm looking at is to progress, whether it's in Alliance War, if I need a different attacker. I'm almost never looking at prestige unless I really, really need to. I think for me, Elsa fit the bill because she may not be the perfect champion, but for me, at least, I really, really needed a good skill champion. The best person on my skill 5-star roster was an R3 Ronin, so I really didn't have a lot of great options, but I knew that I had the Awakening Gems, I had the rank up tickets, and I had the Sig Stones to bring someone who I really liked up. And Elsa Bloodstone, on top of having some really good raw damage, is just a ton of fun to play, especially with her parry into the evade. And that's a really good resource to have against unblockable nodes. And yeah, I think she just fit the bill on a bunch of different kind of areas, nothing really specific, which is kind of what I was looking for at the time.
So are you, when you're making these decisions, the fun factor, the enjoyment of playing the champion has to be there, but it also has to fill an identified need? And in this case, you identified your roster as being weak in the skill class. Is that basically how this came about?
Exactly, yeah. I kind of keep a short spreadsheet of what things I look for in a champion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's stuff. I'm gonna open it up here, but it's stuff like utility, sustainability into questing, being able to take a bunch of different fights, all at once in a lane. Immunities is obviously helpful as well. Countering different nodes, and then how much I think I'd actually use them in war, AQ, and questing, and I rank them on a number from 1 to 10. Add it all up, subtract if I find anything that counters them. Like Quake has a couple minuses because she gets countered really easily by True Strike and a couple other champions. But then I take that full number, I kind of compare it to all the other champions I'm thinking about, and do it that, and then kind of decide on that.
analytical process for these rank ups. That's awesome. I am a big fan of all the spreadsheets. You should think about posting that and doing a video about it if you haven't already. I think people would be pretty interested in that.
Yeah, I should. I have an old team building one that I haven't actually made into a thing that kind of turned into this. So yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Does that factor into a lot of your future?
Right.
Sorry, I was going to say...
No, you go, Rich.
Does it factor into a lot of your future planning? Like, for me, I've been kind of working on Cap American Infinity Wars, Beardo, Clairvoyant, with an idea to further rank up that, and a few other ones as well. And my philosophy is that I'm kind of future planning for things of getting into Act 6.2 and also strengthening the 100% exploration of 6.1. Is there something that factor into your spreadsheet that you are future planning, but maybe a bit further ahead?
I do future plan, not so much for content, because I did the 6.4 beta, but I still don't really know the challenges that I'll really face there. Mm-hmm. But I do plan around champions that I don't have. Like Elsa Bloodstone, I had already done the calculations for based on if I got her. And I just happened to get lucky that she was the one that I pulled. Like right now, I've done the calculations for if I were to add Doctor Doom, Black Widow, Clairvoyant, Nick Fury, Namor, and a couple others to my roster.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about, right? Is we've got this giant game of rock, paper, scissors here, and like you said, it's about finding the champions that can solve the most problems for you, and after you've got that covered, sort of finding these champions that when they are the option, they're the best option. Like someone like a Morningstar or Ronin, that keeps coming up, and I think Mojo might fall into this category a little bit later when we talk about him, is you may not use them all the time, but when you do, they are a stud. So it's always about having that nice mix of covering all of the utilities, some variety across the classes, and I think I tend to look a little bit more on what's the next piece of content that I need to complete and really ranking up for that. That's one of my main focuses, but that's probably because I feel really confident in where my AQ and AW teams are at right now, and my main focus is really on the permanent content progression. What about you, Rich? Where are you at as far as your rank ups and who you're looking to take up next?
It's always a very difficult one. We're both in a similar situation, Dan. I don't know where. Doc, how far are you into Act 6 clearing?
I've completed 6.3 first clear. I'm not quite looking back to do 100% yet, but it's kind of in the back of my mind.
Okay. Similar thing with me. Time is always critical for everybody, really. A lot of things I kind of went a bit gung-ho on, and some things have been strategic, and that's the name of the game, is being as strategic as possible, especially when, and this is going to be a big issue for a lot of players, is when resources aren't as easy to get. And we all know how, gifting event and those greater gifting crystals gave a lot of players an opportunity to do some serious rank ups in a very short space of time, which was amazing. For me, it was a case that over the late space of the last year, hit certain champions for purpose. Iceman was put up to rank 5 in order to make sure that the Crossbones fight in 6.1 was a lot easier. Who else we got? Doctor Doom as well has been putting in a lot of work. Captain America, Beardo, once I got him and awakened him, it was a lot of signatures. And again, utility and usage with future planning to 6.2. And in Cap Marvel movie, I think was just an impulse rank up to rank 2 and utilize. So a little bit of everything, a little bit of utility, a little bit to make the situation for my map 6 grind easier than it was. So yeah, I think that's it. It's ticking a lot of boxes for future content planning, and as well in the interim for doing big yellow numbers a lot more efficiently. How's yours, Dan?
Yeah, I think it's been somewhat similar for me. My big rank ups recently have been Sunspot to rank 5, and that was a prestige move, and he was just really fun to play. But what I found was that he actually had a lot of utility in Act 6.1 because he can kill the opponent so quickly, particularly in that that no retreat node where I could perfect block the specials. Like, that was a happy accident of utility that I ran into. Like, I wasn't planning that, but once I saw him in action, I was like, oh, this guy's perfect because I don't have to dash back. I can perfect block the specials. And he ended up being a key part of my 100%ing 6.1.1. And then my other two big ones recently were Gladiator Hulk to rank 2 and Thing to 565. And those were both crucial in 100%ing variant 1 chapter 3. So again, it's like I was looking at it as, if I invest in these champs, particularly with Thing and Gladiator Hulk, it will unlock these rewards, which I'm close to, which will then allow me to invest in more champs. So it's kind of, spend on champ X, get reward Y, reinvest in champ Z kind of thing. Is just how do you keep the rewards coming? We know that there's always going to be more carrots down the road that they add into the game. So it's like, all right, what's next? What piece of content am I closest to completing? Where am I lacking? Who can help me get there as cheaply as possible, so I'm not spending items, not spending units. Now, there's new champions being added to the game all the time, and the three of us actually all are in the CCP. We all like to put out these review videos. So, Doc, I'm wondering how much you think these review videos influence people ranking up champions, how much stock you put them, and maybe how you'd like people to perceive the review videos. Because I know one of the negatives of the review videos, anytime we show something good, people say you're overhyping the champ, you're trying to get people to buy crystals, and I think everyone here tries to be fair about it and bring up pluses and negatives as every new champ has. So how do you go about sort of that ecosystem out there of YouTube and showcasing champions, and how does that change how you think about champions?
So I think one of the important things when showing off a new character is to show them in ideal situations where all of their utility and damage can be shown to the absolute best, and then definitely show them in non-ideal scenarios. And I think that's kind of what gets lost most of the times. Like, just for example, Longshot. People focused so hard on the actual number of hits he was taking to finish a fight, even though that number of hits was not indicative of how long those fights were actually taking.
Yes.
But also, what happened if the opponent didn't have a lot of buffs, he wasn't running the rogue synergy, and the opponent was incinerating you. A lot of the champions they release now are really well balanced. They have their ups and downs, so they're a lot less likely to kind of get nerfed in the future. But I think it's important for people to kind of show every single aspect of a champion, and also just their thoughts on it. Because if a character release is super broken, then I think it is kind of on the people who review the champion and get a first look to say, hey, this character is broken. Maybe be cautious, but you don't always want to be cautious either.
Right. And I think, particularly in Longshot's case, that was a champion where multiple people in the CCP server were going to the devs, and we were showing that crazy burst damage, and we were like, guys, this is what we're going for, right? Like, do we have anything to worry about? Are you going to change this before he gets released? And obviously he got released and they didn't change anything, and we're going to see what happens down the road. But those questions were definitely asked about a champion like Longshot. What I really like about, maybe it's not just the review videos, which I think are great, and it's nice to see like how you should play the champion, because it shortens your learning curve and it increases your enjoyment of the champion. But it's when people start highlighting a champion that's maybe undervalued by the community. Like when a guy like Brian Grant starts doing a series of videos about Man-Thing, you have to take a step back and say, okay, this is a really smart player that's putting a lot of work into these videos. I need to give a champion that we've all overlooked a second look, right? And I think, same thing with like your Elsa Bloodstone video, Doc, or Rich, King Groot. You have been carrying the torch for King Groot for so long now, despite what everyone says.
Yeah. Well, we're going down this. We're going down this rabbit hole.
Rich, we have to go down this road.
if those Fury buffs gathered any kind of momentum and weight to the champion, damage outputting more, I'm sure this would be a different story. If the armor breaks look like on certain champions as being more viable than they are, then yeah, again, we may be talking. If the poison was more potent, well, you just don't know. I could say that, hey, a rank 5-6 star King Groot, which, let's face it, we're never going to see unless a serious buff is done. Could there be something that he has all the hallmarks of being a good champion? Extensive regen, the fury, the armor breaks, bleed immunity. But it's just the potency there for the damage is just not. But I'd love to see that happen. And I think that, he could be a viable-ish quester. Maybe that's something I'll look to do down the line. But look, I'm not going to push it like Man-Thing with Brian. But I'm sold. I think you're right. I am sold on Man-Thing to a point I was excited to pick up Man-Thing on Friday.
Oh, me too. I pulled him from a featured a few weeks ago.
Brilliant. And
the first thing I thought was, all right, I'm going to have to rewatch some of Brian's videos. And I know there's some stuff in Act 6 that he's going to help me with, and I wouldn't have known that if someone didn't take the time to educate the community on a champion that doesn't fall into the beyond god tier silo. So I think,
Brian's videos on Man-Thing are fantastic. I definitely agreed with him. I was a big proponent of Man-Thing when he was in the CCP testing as well. He's one of those characters that just isn't quite the best, but he has so much that he can do. When in the right situations.
I think the point is on rank ups is you don't have to rank a champion that the community considers the best, but it's important for you to understand why you're ranking a champion. And as long as you have, you're having fun playing the champion and you have an idea of how and where you're going to use the champion, then everything's good. So you don't feel like you're obligated to rank a champion just because the majority considers it the best champion, or not rank a champion because it's not the absolute best. There's a difference between not being the best and not being useful. So just think about it that way. Now we've hinted on it before, especially with these newer champions. Rebalancing is a thing. We've just been through the first wave of rebalancing. There's a bunch of champions that may or may not be rebalanced in the future. So Doc, how does rebalancing and sort of the fear factor of are they going to touch the latest and greatest champion factor into your rank up decision?
So I think one of the important things to look at is a lot of people don't like it because some people spend a lot of time or a lot of money getting these characters as they come out. And I think one of the things to consider there is they get these characters early and then they get them for 3 months or more at whatever level that they're at. And I think that could almost be considered like an early adopter's kind of fee to get the characters and then use them for 3 months before they get balanced. I don't think that really fear of a D rank down or getting them nerfed should really be a big issue for a lot of people's rank ups, because worst case you get them for however many months and you get to use them at this overpowered level, or they get changed ever so slightly. Like the color Namor changes are so very slight that I don't think they really have any major effects on those characters, despite everyone is saying that they're major nerfs.
I guess we'll have to see, because the window to sell those champions is about to close, and most of the sales stories I am seeing online are either people who just ranked up Cull based on the hype and probably would have sold him if they had gotten the chance, nerf or no nerf, or it's like, oh well, I used an awakening gem and then I naturally duped him, so I'm gonna get my gem back, but I'm gonna rank Namer back up anyway.
But do you think like a lot of the champions that are being rebalanced, and obviously this is the problem that I have with a lot of new champions, is hype, and a lot of the times you become sheep to the hype. And especially when looking at Cull Obsidian from any other practical usage, is it a case that we just go, look, let's focus on a utility champion as opposed to raw damage and huge damage numbers? Because let's face it, most of the new content Kabam are putting in really require you to think about a champion that maybe has 4 elements to it of utility as opposed to just 2. Thought?
I think that's...
No, you go, Doc.
That's it. I think that's kind of why it's important for YouTubers to show both sides of the character, because if you don't show them in their perfect scenario, that kind of makes sure that hype doesn't get built. If you show a character that can take down anyone in 12 hits, then that's going to build that hype. But if you show how they do that and what happens if they can't take down a character in 12 hits, then that kind of gets rid of some of the hype, I think.
Yeah, I always try to do a pros and cons with my reviews, and Cam posts those great little spreadsheets on Twitter that's just like bullet points of like good stuff, bad stuff, and I think he's one of the hardest people in the CCP to impress with a new champion. So there's definitely people out there that are doing some really strong work, particularly Cam, as far as like the pros and the cons of a champion. But yeah, I think we all get excited about wanting to show off a champion in his or her best light. So there is a responsibility on the reviewer to give a complete picture and not just post, long shot knocking 100,000 health off an Angela in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is fun, and I did it too, but you have to do it in the context of everything else that's going on in the fight, because I do think there are some people that don't really care about the nerfs, and I think there's other people where it really takes the fun factor out of the game, which is it is how you think about it, but it is a game, and the game should be fun. So, that's the one thing I don't like about the balancing, is for certain people it does really kill the enjoyment of picking up a new champion. It doesn't for me. I mean, I took up Sunspot. He's certainly in that window where, let's face it, he does some big yellow numbers. So if they did knock him down a peg, it's not like I can't say I was surprised.
Yeah.
So, but I also completed a lot of content out of him. Like Doc said, I did get the early adopter bonus, so I can't be too salty about it. Now, another thing, we've talked about sort of the top level of our roster. Like, all right, who's going up to rank 5, 5-star, rank 2, rank 3, 6-star to get through Act 6. But there's been this whole undercurrent of building up the diversity and depth of your roster, and variants have been a huge part of that. So, Doc, how have you used your variant 2015, 2016 rank up gems to address certain needs in your roster?
To be honest, some of them I don't quite use yet.
Yep.
I use them mostly whenever I can, but I don't rank up a character just because I have a gem for them. I used my 2014 3-4 mutant on Colossus, but that's because I was planning on ranking him up anyways, and I would have done it with catalysts otherwise. Because again, I'm just looking for the right champion to do content with, not so much as, I have the resources to rank this person, because I can always use those resources later on someone else.
Right. Yeah, I just used a 2015 gem on Magic this morning, and I've used a mutant one on Colossus as well. And I think this goes back to the importance of the timeliness of these champion reworks, because they're when you rework a 2015 or 2016 champion, it's very important to the community who could be sitting on these gems for months or even a year now. And I think, hopefully this Hulkbuster buff is really good and goes live in June like we're expecting, because I've really enjoyed spending gems on champions like Ronin, champions like Psylocke, Colossus, is, let's face it, Colossus is pretty good now. Yeah. But, who wouldn't want to have basically a free rank 4 Ronin for when you want to play the Stunlock game every once in a while? Like, that's just good, clean fun, right? Like, that's a bonus. Like, that increases my enjoyment of the game. So I really like these rank up gems. Rich, do you have anyone in particular that you used a rank up gem on where these variant gems that really sort of brightened your day and added something to your roster?
Oh yeah, so many. I mean, first and foremost, I went and made a bold decision that as soon as Hulkbuster won the poll, I put him straight up to rank 4, and actually did a video on which I kind of treated as a bit of a meme or kind of a funny video. But I wanted to kind of go because I never even bothered with him at all because there wasn't anything of great worth. So it's going to be exciting to see what the changes are. But it's been pivotal to have an increase also just like when level up events are on. So if there's a champion that I kind of go, oh, I've got that 2 to 3 one that I don't really use, then I kind of go, oh, I don't really want to use the resources, put it on that, and then I've done level up just quite easily. But there's still, like, now I've got in my collection, and again this could be future planning, that I've got a 3 to 4, 4 to 5 skill, which could be, fingers crossed, an Aegon at a later date if I am so lucky. But apart from that, as soon as I get one, I'm looking to offload. Iron Man Infinity War kind of was an impulse, but I use him from time to time for very specialist type things. So I guess it's a little bit of impulse, a little bit of future planning. Did the same thing you did with Magic. And yeah, just a little bit of just padding out my roster to be better than it is. I don't know.
You can add in more champs for arena, so you can get arena done quicker. That's always nice. And I don't know, with these, I look at the year rank up gems as kind of just like a fun bonus. And if a champion like Ronin solves a problem for me once in a while, that's totally worth it for me. And Rich, you kind of hinted on our next question. You use these to help with completing the level up solo event. Doc, as far as ranking up and leveling up your champs, how big of an impact do the solo events have on your planning?
Honestly, I never look at them. It's a happy coincidence if I rank up during one of the events, but they never kind of affect me. I just rank up when I have the resources or when I get the right character. That's probably a bad way to go about it, but.
And what about the level up event? Do you pay attention to level up or not?
No, not really to any of the solo events at all.
Interesting. So those units and that revive, you're not waiting around for those.
No, I just always forget about it whenever it's a thing.
See, I'm all about it. I'm
all about it too.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, we all know that Kabam have potentially looking to get rid of the solo events and putting in something different. They still don't know what they're going to do. I think they throw down an idea of like daily objectives, which isn't too bad. But the big call from players is that, look, if you are going to take those things, and even Kabam said about it, if you take away those the units, the revive or the health potion, whatever else is in there, there's got to be something with all their stuff put back in it. And I'd be like, look, don't take them things away from me. I need my units, my 25 units. I need my health potions, and I need my revive, please.
Oh, completely agree. And Dave jumped all over that.
Yeah.
Dave was like, "Whoa, guys, don't forget, because we do not like when we have things taken away from us, especially things like revives and units, which are so key to successful gameplay and not spending a bunch of money on this game."
Yeah, that's true.
So that's important. And but getting back to rank ups and roster building, final question for the group, Doc, you kind of already answered this, but Prestige, big deal or not for you?
So I already said that it's not a big deal, but my alliance might kind of get at me for that because I have the second lowest prestige in my alliance right now. So it's definitely a factor, but only so much for the alliance. Like, it just so happened that Elsa Bloodstone is 25th, so that's pretty good compared to my other characters. So it's great that she has a high prestige, but I was probably going to rank her up anyways, even if she didn't have it. I might not have put as many Sig Stones into her.
Right.
So for me, at least, it's a secondary thought. It's kind of there, but it's not like the most important thing to me in a rank up.
Yeah, Rich, what about you? Are you prestige or no prestige right now?
I had to put like a push into my prestige because I was just flagging so much. Like last year, I think I was probably about September. Actually, a good chunk of last year was me sitting on 9,100 prestige, and it was a case that it wasn't. I was getting like, you need to be ranking up champions, and I was sticking on resources. Still had it for a good chunk of September through to November, and I think in the space of 1 month when I did the big openings and the 6-star openings, I bumped my prestige up to just close to 10,000 and then teetered it over. But it was a case of like, look, you need to get it up, and I was like, Dr. Doom came around, and then I was like all about putting that on that champion. And I do feel a little bit forced at times, especially if you are to go into more competitive alliances. But at the same time, I think there are people within the alliance, or like alliance leaders, that do understand that, look, if you've got a champion you need for certain content, then there's this kind of like understanding that, look, at some point, please try and improve your prestige, and still you can stay, but, do you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with that. It really depends on your goals and the alliance goals, and for progressing players, it depends how far do you want to go into the game. Certainly at the higher levels, prestige is a big barrier to entry. You have to be this tall to ride the ride, so to speak.
Yeah.
So and I know personally for my alliance, we're knocking on the door of top 150 AQ. We're really close to that score. So in my case, if I was to pull a Dr. Doom or a Silver Surfer, Doom you don't feel bad about because he's great, but Dr. Doom or Silver Surfer, that's immediately rank 5, a class awakening gem, all the Sig Stones I could put in him, because I feel obligated to raise the prestige because we've made a point to push AQ, and everyone's rewards are on the line. I keep thinking every time I spin a crystal now, I'm going to dupe my Thor Ragnarok because then I would be obligated to take him up.
Yeah.
Like, he's unduped, and I can say, I can justify not using the generic on him, but if I duped him, I feel like I'd have to take him up. For the good of the alliance, I would have to take one for the team. So, but my alliance, my roster is in a place where it's not like I'm saying, oh, I can't complete this content because I have to wait, for more resources after I rank up Thor Ragnarok. I'm in a place where that's not going to hold me back right now, so I don't feel bad.
Yeah, Dan, are you comfortable about your roster now? I mean, for me personally, this is the most comfortable I've felt since last year with having something once each class.
I feel really good about my roster for everything except Abyss of Legends. I don't have any of the horsemen besides an unduped Nick Fury, but I'm not going to think about Abyss till after I 100% 6.4 probably.
Yeah.
But as far as like my day-to-day life and like having a broad roster for AQ, AW, questing and arena, like I feel like I'm in a really good place. What about you, Doc? How do you feel about your roster right now?
For content clearing, I think I'm in a good place. Elsa was my 7th rank 5, so I'm getting a lot of a more broader range, I think. Especially as soon as 6.4 comes out, I'm going to push into that. For prestige, I really think I need to start looking at it some more. And then also just for general utility, I can always use some more there, especially at rank 5. I have the T5 basics, I just need to get the gold and ISO to do some more rank ups.
But Doc, there's not a gold problem in the contest right now. What happened, bud?
I don't run in the arena. That's my problem.
That's the problem. Arena solves a lot of problems.
Yeah. But dungeons may be the key to the gold problem being solved.
Let's hope so. Yeah. I am very eager to eventually do an episode discussing the new dungeons, because I'm a big fan of dungeons now, but I recognize that they are very stale and need to be more than they are to appeal to a wider portion of the community. So hopefully the fun factor and the rewards are there to motivate people when we see the new dungeons.
Yeah, true.
So I think we've done a good job talking about, sort of our roster building philosophies and where we think our rosters are at and what goes into our decision making. So let's move on to the other big topic of the week. We have a new featured champion coming Thursday, the 2nd February champion, the spineless one himself, the troller of the content creator community. Mojo has entered the contest, and we've all done reviews on him, so I'm just going to go around, starting with you, Doc. You seemed like you enjoyed your time with Mojo, so give us your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I absolutely loved playing around with Mojo. He was a ton of fun. His damage ramp up hits some really, really good levels. I think he has a lot of similarities to Man-Thing, I think, with his sustainability over time. But unlike Man-Thing, he doesn't really have any really non-ideal matchup because he does that degen damage. He's pretty easy to play too. I think his thing of hitting the what do you call it, the prompts every once in a while. Yeah, was it's pretty easy to do. And sometimes you just hit him on accident.
I found that as well. Yeah, sometimes you're like, I need to complete. Oh, it's already done. Oh, that was nice. Yeah. Because it's so simple. Like when it's dash back or throw a special, and it's you or your opponent. Like these things just kind of happen.
Right. Yeah.
Were there any prompts that either of you found difficult? Start with Dan, and then we'll go to Doc.
I think hold block was not my favorite because I find that it brings you out of the natural flow of the fight. So I wasn't a big fan of that. It's kind of like, having to switch Nightcrawler is like you have to factor that in. So that's one that I would heavy out of when I could.
Yeah. Doc, what about you?
So one of the things, I think the one that I found myself switching out of the most was the end debuff, because I would originally throw my SP1 to kind of end whatever buff the opponent has, but then I realized that I could trigger dexterity and end that buff.
Yeah.
Just by hitting it to the opponent, and that kind of made that a lot simpler for me, so I kind of stopped hitting that one. I think other than that was maybe counter a special.
Yeah, or the punish on special, is that the one?
Right. Yeah.
That one I struggled with. I don't know if it's because we live in the middle of nowhere, so it's kind of like getting a good connection after the specialist hit to then rush in. And I was just playing about with distance, like whether or not I was too not close enough to the enemy in order to that special being thrown and then dashing in. Because I played about the same timing with finger movements, and I was like, this is weird. Like once it worked, the other time it didn't work.
It felt like a very much smaller window than normal.
Yeah.
Or at least that you'd think it would be.
Yeah. But overall, I think Mojo moves around the board really well for an XL champion, so I very much liked that. Now, Doc, you how did you feel about his ramp up? Because I felt like it took really 3 fights for Mojo going and be really enjoyable.
Yeah, I feel about the same. Anywhere from 3 to 5, as long as you can build up to 5 million followers during that fight. He was really good past that, because then you got the Fury during your anti-life field.
Right.
You deal a lot more damage there. But if you end up starting the fight with 5 million followers, and it's just a really, really fast fight. Like I was doing uncollected in like less than 30 seconds with a R3. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a bit like Morningstar. Is once you get him maxed out, you're running over things, but it is a little bit of a slow start. But unfortunately, you can't ramp up Mojo's subscribers until you awaken him, and I think that's going to really hold some people back because they're gonna see us testing these Sig 200 Mojos, and they're gonna be like, "Wait, where's my ramp up?"
Yeah. Yeah, in that case, I think he'll be more of like a single fight champion.
Kind of
Interesting, because he's got the single fight and multi-fight ramp up.
I mean, I was just going to say that it's kind of gives me this vibe with like a Mega Red, where you need to awaken him, you need to put X amount of signature stones to see the payoff.
Yeah, he definitely needs to be awakened, and probably he's got that dual Sig ability, right? So just awakening him gets you the persistent subscribers, which is great. But then if you want to ramp up the Fury buff from the anti-life field, that's where you need the Sig stones. So this is one of those cases where it would have been interesting to sort of test him unawakened or at like a low Sig level to see how big a deal that Fury buff really is, because it is a pretty big Fury buff, and I wonder how he would feel if that was at a much lower level. The other thing is with a champion like any of these multi-fight ramp-up champions, I'm always looking at them as, okay, how do I clear the whole lane with this champion?
Yeah.
Because, like a champion like Longshot, you could bring him in for one fight and get everything you need, but a Mojo, a Morningstar, an Aegon, you have to commit to running pretty much the whole lane with those champions. And I don't know that he's certainly not as good as Aegon, and I don't know if Mojo's quite worth it for me, like that kind of investment where I'm like, I'm going to run Mojo as my primary champion for every fight in a lane.
Yeah, do you think it's then a case that the champion's worth looks into things like variants and specific Act 6 or maybe like Act 5, depending where you are in the game, where you go, oh, this path is ideal because I'll have X, Y, and Z champion, which will be able to give me, at the end, a good payoff against the boss, those kind of things.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at that, more so because I'm a sometimes Morningstar player, and that ramp up is so arduous, but the payoff is so big. I think Mojo has a much easier ramp up, much more controllable. You're not throwing a special 3, to build and winning the fights. With Mojo, it's much easier. You just have to plain old win the fight.
Yeah.
So it's a much easier ramp up, but you don't get that life steal, you don't get that massive SP2 damage or the energy damage on the special one like you do with Morningstar. So I think a champion like Mojo, because of the way he's built, you have to compare him against a very wide pool of champions, because he's meant to be meant to function as a primary lane clearer.
Kind of sticking on the subject, but going a little bit to the side. Obviously, we've got Morningstar, and we're talking about that. When you ramp up persistent charges, get to a point where you can lifesteal. Doc, how do you feel about the regen of the character? Do you think it was that potent, or?
I feel like it was enough. I think 3. So at very first, I didn't quite realize it was 3% of missing health as opposed to just 3% health. So since it's out of missing health, it's not quite as strong, but you can still get to a certain percentage of health, like somewhere in like 25 to 50% range, where you're gonna land about even, no matter what, taking a bunch of blocked hits and that kind of stuff. So I felt like it was enough to make do.
Yeah, I don't think the regen really, that wasn't a super impressive part of the character build for me, but I know some people do disagree on that and do really like the regen, but he's not someone that I would play if I feel like I need that regeneration box ticked. But Mojo, he's unique, and that's what I like about him. He's got some that degen and the anti-life field. Like, that's a really cool build. There's not a lot of characters immune to degen, and there's definitely a possibility down the line as these nodes get more specific. Like, if Kabam puts in a node where you have to be degenerating the opponent to do damage, like Mojo, he is going to be your guy for that. Like, if they do a degen version of Do You Bleed, you are going to want to have your Mojo ready to go. Another thing with Mojo, he could be a beast on Alliance War defense, because not only does he degen you if you have a buff that expires, #control, #metal, #villain. He is poised to take advantage of all these defensive tactics.
Yeah.
I mean, would you guys consider him worthy of a defensive rank up right now for AW?
I mean, for me personally, I would consider a rank for start point, but again, it goes back to what we discussed about the roster building, where a lot of the times when I've put something up I'm thinking of putting something up, I've got to see worth in an offensive manner, because again, utility seems to scream through with a lot of new content Kabam are putting in, and also options for saying, look, well, this is going to be good because not many other people are going to have this champion. So a little bit of yes, but also a reluctant yes, and as well, depending on like champion balances, which does hold me back a little bit with a little bit of the fear factor. Doc, how do you feel about that?
I think he'll be a good defensive rank up because he has a lot of potential on offense. The best defenders that people can rank up if their alliance needs defenders are people that, if they're not sitting on alliance war defense, that they'll happily take into quests and they'll find some utility for. And I think Mojo is a good option for that. I think I see a lot of his offensive stuff kind of could have been tuned up a little bit more, but it was definitely left in favor of him not making him the absolute worst defender.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Mojo definitely falls in that category of a switch hitter defender, like a Killmonger, like a Sentinel, where you can play the champion. It's not a total waste to just rank him up and put him on defense, because you can actually do something with him. And he is an XL champion, which is always good for another variant 2 option. So yeah, Doc, what's your kind of like your final grade? Like, if you were to pull a Mojo, like, would he be someone you'd be investing in and ranking up, or would he be on the bench?
If I would pull a Mojo now, I would say yes, I would probably rank him to at least rank 4, but that's because I have a Mystic Awakening gem, system, Sig Stones for him, and a couple other things. So I think if I didn't have those things, I'd probably try him at R3 unduped, but I probably wouldn't bring him past that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, whereas if I don't pull Dr. Doom in the next couple weeks and Mojo was, say, my first pull from the next featured 5-star crystal, he would be someone that I probably would awaken and sig all the way up and take to 565, because he is unique in the problems he can solve, and he does have enough prestige that it would help me.
Yeah.
I think for me, the last 2 years have been, I think, when we had the Mystic Dispersion changes, I kind of made a beeline. When the Mystic line just kind of looked a bit trash, I was kind of, nah, I'm not bothering at all. And then I think Symbiote Supreme was the one in the last 2 years that was the begin of the resurgence of the Mystic line. I think I want to push my roster back to be more Mystic centric, but I feel that even though I can't afford the units to spend because I'm all about content at the moment, once that's done, it's a case I'm going to focus a bit more. But yeah, if I got the Mojo to go with my Doctor Doom, I'd feel that my roster will be more a push towards Mystic, and I'll bring up a few others as well. Does anybody else feel like they would want to push like more to the Mystics and put more into Mystic Dispersion? Doc, do you have Mystic Dispersion on at the moment?
So I run 3 out of 5 Mystic Dispersion, which I have the 4th level unlocked, but I've never actually put a point into it, and I kind of feel like 3 of 5 is a really good level. In terms of like making like a full Mystic team, I think it's definitely viable.
Yeah.
Because you have characters like Dr. Voodoo who punishes buffs after they happen, even infinite duration ones. You have Black Widow Clairvoyant who can nullify and punishes immunities if Dr. Voodoo can't do damage. And then Sim Supreme who punishes buffs before they happen, and he does bleed damage. So you have a ton of different damage options within those three. Plus immunities, plus being able to deal against immunities. And if you add in Mojo, I think he'd be a great extra option to that for his sustainability, for his degen damage, and then just general questing.
Yeah, I agree. And Mojo is one of those champions that he's going to benefit quite a bit from some Mystic Dispersion, because you do want to be getting to that special 2 as often as possible. And his whole kit is built around getting the opponent to have buffs expiring, so that it all feeds into powering Mojo, more special 2s, more anti-life field. Like that's just what you want from the champion. So
yeah.
I run just 1 out of 5 Mystic Dispersion. My main Mystic champion that I use as an attacker is Mephisto, and I find anything more than 1, he tends to overshoot to a special 3, which is not something you want to be doing with him. But I agree with you, Rich, that I'm falling back in love with the Mystic class, and if I could pull a Doom and a Long Shot and or a Mojo to go with my Mephisto, my Ghost Rider, my Symbiote Supreme, I would probably look to respec and invest more heavily in Mystic Dispersion and in playing Mystics more, because they just stop the defenders from doing what they do best, and that's always a key for me. When you're talking about getting through these buff heavy champions or nullifying buffs, it's just a bigger and bigger part of the game now.
Yeah.
So final thoughts on Mojo. It seems like we all like the champion, recognize there's some good strengths, some good weaknesses, but I just want to talk about just the art and design of the champion. I think he's really smooth to play, and I really like, we've talked about this a little bit on a prior episode, Rich, how they updated Mojo for the modern era of mobile games and influencers and streaming and having these hater buffs. Like, I just love the whole concept of the story of the character.
Yeah, the way that they were able to integrate it to more of a contemporary delivery was just brilliant. And not back, it could be a case like back in the day when I saw the character for the first time in the 90s animated series. The way that was very much like, you didn't have a lot of the mobile technology, streamers, influencers, wasn't the case. So it was very much all about television being the big thing, and television personalities being the big thing about this Mojo verse, and how they wanted to take X-Men and kind of display them in this kind of arena. So it's so clever the way that they've done that, and I think if Kabam can get that right, that I actually think is one of the most popular motion comics that they've delivered, the Excommunication one. So if they can really think each and every character similar to that going in to the game, they could really, really kind of rejuvenate. I'm not saying they didn't, but a lot more people are talking about the way the champions are designed, first and foremost, and the second thing is the way that they're kind of implemented in the game from a storytelling perspective. So that's just amazing, isn't it?
It is, and you can tell that they had a lot of fun with Mojo, and I think in anything you create, if you're having fun, the audience is going to pick up on that. And because you can tell that they really enjoyed Mojo and went wild, and really, he's the kind of character that you can push to the absolute extreme.
Yeah.
And in the story arc, right? So he is literally larger than life. That is his persona. So that came through in the motion comic, and looks like it's so great. So I've really enjoyed seeing, as a big X-Men fan, I really enjoyed seeing one of the more he's not a Magneto, he's not an Apocalypse, he's not a Juggernaut. Sort of I don't want to describe him as C-list, but he's not one of the top tier. But they did such a great job with making him have an impact in the contest.
Yeah.
So I just love how he's played into the story, and I hope we're not done with Mojo. I hope he's got more to do. Doc, any last thoughts on Mojo as far as the design or the storyline for him?
I think it was great. I don't really know much about Mojo from the comics. Most of my comic knowledge is like Fantastic Four related. But from what I've learned about him now, he's really good. I think was he in Legion season 1 or season 2 or something, that TV show that didn't last?
I thought that was I only watched like the first half of season 1. I thought that was Shadow King.
That's all I watched too, so I don't really know.
Someone's going to correct us in the... We're definitely getting corrected in the comments for that. So. Don't worry, guys. We love you. It's all good. So who's right? Shadow King, Mojo, someone else? Let us know, Legion fans.
Yep.
So cool. All right. I think we've gotten close to our hour, Rich.
We have just hit the hour, so that is a perfect time to say thank you very much to everybody for listening, and as well thank you very much to our guest MCOC Doc. Thanks for joining us, and links to his YouTube channel will be found in the bios. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Dan, as always, a pleasure.
Thank you, Rich. And let's just not forget, Doc. We got the links in the description. But what should folks be looking for you as far as new content coming soon?
I should have a really interesting kind of specialty guide on Rogue next weekend, and always looking to do new character tutorials, probably one on Warlock in the next couple of weeks as well.
Nice. So a Rogue, another underappreciated yet useful champion. So we will be looking forward to that.
Dan, what are you up to?
I am digging through Variant 3 guides right now. I am working on 1.2 and 2.1 as far as getting the lanes set in my write-ups and writing tips. So I am hoping to have a full Variant 3 walkthrough done in the next several weeks, but it is a big piece of content to tackle, and free time is at a premium. So.
Yeah.
But I am making progress.
Yeah, I'm doing similar things to you. I've got grind guides for newer players for resources that people want. Cavalier, how to be, I can't think of the title. Easy Cavalier Guide, 6.1 completion, and also variant guides. I'm going to be doing some variant guides as well, but trying to get it all done by next week is going to be a difficult one, but we'll see. In any case, that has been the podcast. Thank you everyone so much for listening through. You can find the podcast. It's available on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes. And we'll see you in the next episode, everybody. Bye-bye.